Good morning, all you profitable stylists and all you future profitable stylists out there. We are talking about the biggest hair extension sourcing mistakes that stylists make. We're going to be talking about all things hair extensions. Where do they come from? What is the differences between the good and the bad? Why do people make mistakes? What's some of the marketing BS out there? And which ones should you actually be looking for?
Tell us, Eddie.
Should be looking for on-stage hair extensions and shear extensions.
Now, when you were saying the title this morning, I had no idea. I knew it was something about extensions, but I wasn't sure. I remember my whole journey. And I love telling the story because every time I tell the story, I remember where I come from. I think it's important to remember where you come from because I get mad really quick when people just yesterday was quizzing me about hair extensions. And I gotta text that guy back. Started off by clicking stop on our automated text messaging. After a question I answered days ago, then text stop. And I was like, not interested, huh? Then my sales girl, Rose, says, well, did you notice y'all had a conversation before? And I thought, you know what? Maybe he got turned off by what was obvious, some automated messages. Let me give this guy a little bit of break. And I texted him from my personal line and said, why did you have such a bad experience? What happened? And then he was a little mean at first, but like Chat GPT, it doesn't matter how mean you are to it. It keeps answering and helping you no matter what. So I thought I'm going to be like Chat. I'm going to lose my emotions and just, if he's having a conversation with me, I'll answer back and I'll just answer the questions. Comes all the way down to technique. And it's funny because I was working with Chat earlier in the day and Chat said it's not usually going to be your fault or the person's fault. Blame everything on technique and try to redirect their technique. And I was like, how does Chat know so much? And so then I said it might be your technique because we don't have that problem with any of the customers using our hair. By the end of an on and off conversation all day long, it got down to this person saying they want to try our hair. They're sorry for coming across rude at the beginning of the day. They just have a strong personality. And it kind of reminded me of the beginning days of me. Like even before that, I didn't understand. I'm like, why can some hair be so expensive and some is so cheap? And my first thought as a young hairdresser, not understanding, which is so stupid. I should have understood that hair has levels of quality, but I didn't even see that. All I had in my mind was some people are trying to rip me off. Some people are trying to charge me a lot of money for hair, and some are being really fair and giving a good fair price, the cheaper ones, because I wanted to not spend much money. And I didn't even see, there was no internet. There was no ethical sourcing. Nobody was talking about ethically sourced hair or any of that stuff. And this one lady sent something about asked, do I want the tangle free guaranteed hair? And I thought, no such thing. How can you make, she said 90-day tangle free guarantee. And I said, that's not possible. She goes, yeah, guarantee you get your money back. We'll replace the hair. And I said, and then she said it was more money. And I was like, oh, it's more money. She goes, yeah, but if it doesn't, I said, how can you guarantee this hair doesn't tangle when this extension hair always tangles everything I've ever used? And I'm being an idiot about it. I'm being rude, So I'm remembering this guy yesterday being rude with me. It's like they get frustrated because I guess so many people lie to them, take advantage of them. You just get so fed up. And so I gave it a try and I was blown away. And she said, I'm going to send you a little book also. Again, no internet. So I got this about this thick and it was a small book, spiral bounded, plastic bound. And I started reading this book and I was blown away. I started to understand like, oh, I should get it. I'm bleaching hair. Some of my own clients have different levels of quality in hair, whether I'm bleaching it, they're bleaching it, some other hairdresser did. That right there, I don't know why I didn't put it together. I didn't understand that most hair in the world came from people with darker hair to start with. And so to get all those other colors, some bleaching or some lightening or lifting has to happen. That's one process. And then they're almost always toning it or coloring. So all extension hair, I'd say 90 something percent is double process. So starting just to understand that simple little bit right there should tell you there's a range that we could talk about forever.
I mean, we could totally talk about that forever. And it is really wild because in the beginning, nobody wants to feel like they've been sold. And that's always the game, ain't it? And especially now with social media and and how much we are all connected into the internet. There is not only is there all the information available, it's an overwhelming amount of information that's out there. So trying to sort through it and organize it and figure it out. And then this is something I say all the time too. You got to take your personal opinion and your emotions out of it for a minute. You got to put the politics aside for a minute. And you just got to look at something reasonable, well, not even reasonable, logical. And it's so hard to do because everybody has an opinion, everybody has a feeling about something, and everybody's being told how to be or what to be or how to think or what to think and all of that. So when you're trying to weed through all of these crazy things, how do you break it down to evaluate what's what? So as always, this is what we're going to be discussing. I got my notes to keep me on track because I'm a squirrel. I'm all over the place. None of my notes are going to matter within 5 minutes because you're going to take me down some rabbit hole anyways. So where do you want to start?
Well, I wrote down like a part of the title about the navigating, extension, sourcing, I guess, buying, getting, grabbing your hair. And where should you start? I don't think there's one right answer. I can tell you that I've changed how I think over the years. As I used terrible hair at first because of the price, and I think my skill level probably didn't deserve better hair. Here comes the three-legged stool again, real quick. After many, many years of doing hair extensions, realize that it isn't always one thing. It's either the client, the stylist, or the product for the most part. And so if I don't know what I'm doing, it doesn't matter how great the product is. So when I got good at it, I was real arrogant about you got to use good hair or you're stupid, And then I started realizing, really, if you're just learning how to do hair in the beginning and you are not gonna get proper education or determine that you're going to practice and get the videos or the in-person, figure out the right way to use this very expensive, good product, you might as well use cheap crap. If you're not going to commit to doing it right and you're going to let technique get better just through experience, which is what I did in the very beginning. So I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just a long way around. And knowing what I know now, I would skip all the problems I went through and go straight to somebody that knows what they're doing and say, show me how to use this right. So I can skip all the negatives but I was very distrusting and I'm hands-on and I wanted to try a little bit. So I saw something and I wanted to try it before I got education. So I bought the cheap stuff and I gave it a try. And it was probably harder to learn doing it that way because it was falling out, shedding, tangling, knotting. Go ahead.
There is this belief that somebody's going to start with lower cost or cheaper or however you want to phrase it. And then they're going to build up some skill set and then they're going to start migrating into the better stuff. The most classic example is when we're talking to beauty school students who are about to graduate. They're like, I'm going to go work in one of these chain shops, chain salons, and I'm going to work there for about 2-3 years. And I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to get my speed up, my comfort zone, all of these. And then I'm going to move into the nice, large salon and the commission salon. My belief and my opinion is this. There is a place for everybody. There's a price for everybody. There is a product out there for everybody. Everything has its place. The low-end stuff and the high-end stuff, all in between. But you have to appreciate and understand where each one lives and why each one exists. And if your end goal is to get good and then eventually go to the big shop or use the good product, do not start with the low-end stuff and work your way up. You are going, when you're using low-end products, you have to do so many tips and tricks and hacks, and you need to weave in and out. You got to do so many extra things to get around the hurdles or the constraints that exist.
That you won't even believe that the high-end stuff is this easy. When you get there, you'll be like, no, you got to use all these tips and tricks. No, you don't.
No,
when you got the good stuff, everything's easier. It's just more expensive.
And you see how many times in class stylists will struggle because they just can't wrap their mind around how straightforward and simple something is, because they've created habits out of necessity. I have to do this, otherwise this is going to happen. If I don't do this, this is going to happen. And they're like playing on this house of cards or the Jenga thing, and they're so afraid to work with the pieces. So
I get what you're saying. As I was saying it, I was thinking like, some people are just going to do it the hard way. I mean, I know I seem to have to bang my head against the wall a bunch of times in a lot of areas to get there. But then after, I'm always thinking, God, there was a shorter way. Why do I have to keep doing it the hard way? Why am I hardwired that way? Now, the older I get, the more I appreciate. Like, I don't mind hiring a coach in a lot of areas now. Like, teach me. I will pay you to teach me how to skip. I know there's a lot of tough steps. And they're like, now listen, you're going to have to be honest with us and tell us. I was like, don't worry, I'm going to tell you. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at that. I don't even mind naming my shortcomings now, because I just don't get embarrassed about that anymore. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at that. What should I do to get over that? I know there are processes to skip to do things right and faster and better, but I don't think the majority of people out there are like that. What do you think?
People get embarrassed.
Yes.
There is pride. There is ego, and then there is pride. And it is easier to say, check your ego at the door. It's easier to say, swallow your pride so you can learn something. It's so easy to say it, but to actually do it and be in the middle of it. Nobody wants to be shown up. It's not a good feeling. It really is dependent on the mentor that you're working with or the coach that you're working with. Can they cultivate a proper environment where learning becomes fun, the shortcomings, you're laughing about it, you're using it as a stepping stone of, okay, this is where you're at. We're going to get you here. Come on, let's go. Let's do this. Right. Versus, oh, that's it. That's all. That's how you do it. That's so dumb. What the fuck is wrong with you? And it's like, no, man, you can't take that approach on people. I think the first thing that we should go into is really explaining where hair, my phone keeps going off this morning for some reason.
Mine too, but I like that you're going back to your notes to keep us in.
I'm trying, I'm trying. We should talk about, I don't think people realize how many places hair come from. I think everybody thinks all the hair comes from the same place. And they don't realize worldwide, hair comes from all over the world.
Yes. Right. And I think another thing to understand, it's sad, but true. It has a lot to do with finances or what people have to live with. And it also plays into the lies of where hair comes from. When very popular in the black market is the words, the marketing of Brazilian hair. But there's not enough. Let me go back just a little bit. Hair comes from poor areas usually. People who hair is the last thing they're thinking about. They're not wearing their hair as a thing to a social status kind of thing, or their religion covers their head and they don't show their hair, so it doesn't matter if they have much of it or not. So many of them are cutting hair to give it away for money or for religious reasons, and maybe just to survive. And it's a sad thing, right? But thank goodness somebody wants to buy that hair. So it is one more way they can be supported or get money or get help in their life. So I don't judge that situation. The world is just a way bigger place than we understand. And Brazil doesn't really have those real poor areas that give hair. So what that really is referring to is a curl pattern. The Brazilian, we want Brazilian hair. It's really never from Brazil. It's just a certain curl pattern because they're known to have wavier hair is the thought process or the marketing ploy for that. But for the most part, hair comes from poorer areas. But it's not just poor areas. It's areas that have a lot of people also. So the number one source for hair is going to be Chinese hair, because they have the largest people group. They have the largest little villages that are a little poorer, that are donating or selling their hair to get rid of. But the thing I always taught about Chinese hair is that every people group has a different diameter of hair, right? So that kind of comes into play here to understand hair tenure along the way with hair sourcing, which is kind of what we were talking about to start with. I was thinking we're going to be talking about sourcing from manufacturers and distributors. We're talking about sourcing. We're going way further back, sourcing from the people.
It's so confusing to people. They don't get it. You know, Indian Remy hair, Chinese hair, silky smooth, Brazilian hair, premium quality. It's like all these terms that are thrown around.
Just to give you an example, when I was starting a new line or trying to copy an old line, and I'm dealing with a Chinese rep, and she keeps saying, no, you want Chinese hair. It's the best hair. It's the highest quality. And she said, it can be the lowest also. It has to do with if the cuticle's left on, if the cuticle's in the right direction, how they process the hair, chemically process and sourcing. Did the person use color before they got the hair or not? So there's a lot of, like you're saying, a lot of little things. So sourcing can be from a country and a particular person, but then how they handle the hair after they get it or while they're getting it can be a big factor too. And so in the middle of our conversation, I said that something I didn't even realize I said somewhere in there. I mentioned something about the wave. I didn't want it silky straight. And she goes, oh, you want Indian hair. I was like, you see, from the beginning was saying, I think I want Indian hair, the higher quality Indian hair. And she's telling me, no, you want Chinese hair. From everything I'm describing, she's saying you want Chinese hair. Well, there were certain things about she's Chinese. And so to her, hair that matches her hair was best. And I said, well, the challenge here is I'm in the USA and most Americans are European descendant, a little, all of the different, not as much of an Asian culture in the US as it is more of I guess, an Eastern culture, but, and of course it's individualized, right?
You got to look at your region. Yeah.
Yeah. But most people in America have a bit of wave, some a little more, some a little less. And yes, if I want silky straight hair, Chinese hair might be the best, but synthetic hair has a large diameter. Chinese hair is a little bit smaller. Indian hair is even smaller. And then some of the other European countries are a little smaller. So to match the size of the hair, and then of course, dark hair to light hair goes from bigger to smaller. And then you've got round, oval, and flat, depending on curls. So there's so many things to think about. But the most important is that their cuticles all going in the same direction. The size of the hair is pretty close to yours. And what we had found is somewhere between Indian and European hair matches most Americans. And that's the best you can do on a major scale. And so then the job is to try to pinpoint for the particular person getting hair if they want or need better hair. But after you've done that, let me let you talk to that a little bit before I go further.
It really is fascinating because depending on the clientele that you're servicing, now all of a sudden the conversation changes. It's not so much, oh, Chinese hair is crap or Chinese hair is the best or Indian hair is the There is no more, this is the best kind, this is the worst kind. It's more a matter of, for my type of clientele, for their type of hair, I need this kind of hair. So now that you get that, now within that, you got to look at the quality sourcing and the quality control, because you mentioned about the differences of, is this virgin hair that the company is starting off with, or is it colored hair that the, color processed hair that the company is starting off with, the manufacturer is starting off with. And this is another part, this quality control is another part where a lot of clients, They just don't understand. Even a lot of stylists have a struggle wrapping their mind around this. No matter where this hair comes from, they are not producing 1,000 pieces of hair at a time just for you. They are getting it. A batch is not this small thing that you ordered. A batch is a crap ton of hair in varying lengths, sizes, textures, densities, and the manufacturer has to take all of that at the same time. They have to process it all at the same time. They have to package all of it at the same time. By the time we get the hair as the stylist, by the time we're putting it into a client's hair, that batch may have been from a year or two ago. And that's a huge discovery that I made. That was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, so when I first asked about the hair and the lady sent me that book, one of the pages I looked at had a picture, and I thought I was looking at piles of dirt, because that's what a batch looks like on the ground. Because where else are you going to put? Imagine you need to fill a few holes in your yard, and you call the local dump truck service or soil service, and you want to put some potting soil in your flower beds or sand to fill some holes in your yard, and you order a small dump truck, the smaller dump truck, and they dump a load. And you've seen it in other people's yards. You see a load of sand on your driveway or your front yard. That is the starting smaller batch, if you want to call it a batch, of hair, like you said, in varying things. Now, each little section is taken off a person is banded, cuticle going the same direction, and that batch is a pile of hair. You can't. And when I saw it on the ground, I thought, oh, it's on the ground. Pick it up, And I thought, well, heck, when you got a pile that big, there's no table big enough. What?
Where are you going to hang that up? Where are you going to?
Yeah. It's just a pile. There's no neat way to process that. You're taking a little bit out of the pile at a time. And then what happens is multiple people's hair get put together to process. So it's not like you can have a little bit of, like, the whole batch isn't good or bad. So when people say, I'm having a little trouble with my hair, I got a bad batch. That's why you and I always laugh about it, because most often it's something you did or the client did. It's not usually a bad batch, because if you're the first to call and you truly have some bad hair, we possibly have a much bigger problem. We're going to have about 20 or 30 more people. And we have had that before. One time for pink hair for Hope, it went so big for a couple of years, they were starting to rush the pink haired color, and the pink was fading really fast. And yes, everybody's pink hair faded. We had a bad batch.
Guess what? That pink doesn't exist anymore. It's been discontinued. They just refuse to make that pink anymore. That's how so they don't fix the problem. They just kill the problem for the future. Like, there's just no more availability of that type of, option anymore. Sometimes
the problem is fixed, but right, there are problems. But let's stay back on subject as far as the sourcing. So when these things happen, like you said, all the different lengths, the different textures, the different colors, they're having to test it for so many things. That is the beginning of sourcing. And along the way, all I can think of is ding, 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 ding. Like, what is changing the price along the way? First, the sourcing, where it comes from in the world. Some hair is more expensive than others. The length they have to deal with. The longer the length, the more expensive. And then sometimes these piles of hair have a few loose hairs get out of the banded, right? You band the hair, you cut the ponytail off, the cuticle's going in one direction. Some of that hair falls out as they're moving the hair around. They sweep up the hair. That doesn't go in the trash. It gets sold to lower end companies that will rake and sweep and sort that hair. But now some hair has cuticle going this way, some is this way. And that's the start of lower end hair, where they don't care which way the cuticle's going, and they don't call it Remy hair or cutically aligned hair anymore. It's just human hair. They add all these words to make you think it's better hair. 100% human, conditioned, Brazilian, whatever word people are thinking is the better word. Most people don't even know what the word Remy means. So sometimes they even lie and call it Remy when it's not. Remy is supposed to mean that all the cuticles going in the same direction, but sometimes they call it cutically aligned. Sometimes they call it Remy. Either way, if the company actually, and all you can do is buy from a company that's reputable, that you're having good experiences with over and over. And that's where we got to. We got to the point where we're like, we don't even want to sell low-end hair because high-end hair has so many. We all have enough problems to deal with no matter what. Why do I want to add problems to selling lower quality hair and having more problems and challenges to deal with? I would rather the problem of, yep, I'm sorry, our hair's a little more expensive. Oh, you don't want it? Okay, goodbye. I would rather the problem of not getting the client than the problem of the client getting the hair and then saying, this is terrible, you need to replace it. Well, I sure can't afford to give it to you twice now at this cheap price. So I would just rather not deal with that. But at some level, it's worth starting there. So along the way, the sourcing and then keeping it all cutically aligned, it's time. God, it's time expensive to keep the hair bundled, to try not to lose too much hair out of those bundles, keep all the cuticle going the same way as we're lightening it. I say the company's lightening it, toning it, darkening it, cleaning it, sanitizing it, shampooing it. It's a lot easier to let all that hair loose in a big washer machine, where they're cleansing it and cleaning it. But now they got to keep it all in the same direction. That is a little more trouble. And then the detangling is a little more difficult because you're keeping each bundle separate before you put them together, and then keeping being sure and being organized. So all of that takes more people, more manpower, more time, more money. So that's just about getting it to the coloring and bleaching process. If you want to talk any about that before we get into coloring.
Whole another process in itself. This was another thing that was very eye-opening for me in the beginning. That I kind of assumed it. I kind of thought I understood it, but once we really, really got into it, I was mind blown. And I'm just going to give a very loose analogy. This isn't perfect, but let's just say, because this is how I explain it in class. Let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is crap, 10 is the best. Okay. And let's just say in a hypothetical, even if you were able somehow to get the best quality 10 hair as your starting source, which is impossible. Nobody has a perfect 10 hair. But let's just say hypothetically, even if you were able to get it, by the time the manufacturer has to process that and color it and have it become whatever it's going to be, it's going to degrade a tier 1 or 2 levels of quality. So now that perfect 10 is at best an 8 or a 9. Then they have to complete the process and package it and get it over to us. Somewhere in there, it may or may not lose another grade. So you got that 8-9 may now be a 7-8-9. You don't know. By the time you buy that, by the time you put that onto the client, by the time we manipulate it and do what we need to do to it, put it onto the client, cut it in, color it in, blend it in, all of that, you lose another grade or 2. So now that perfect 8-9 is now at best a 7-8.
And we're comparing all of this to a person's natural hair, which might not be a 10 either, which is fine. Because if you didn't have any color or processing done to your hair and you let it grow out virgin, hair is, I want to kind of clarify what you're going through here, because you're talking about scalp to N, and we could grade hair from scalp to N as different grades also. As hair grows, half an inch a month. So every half inch is another month, so every 2 months, your hair has been on your head is an inch of hair. So if you got 6, 8, 10 inch hair that's coming down to here, could be depending on how long your hair is, could be, let's just say it's a year old. Down here's a year old. That hair from scalp to ends has experienced everything you've experienced over the last year. The heat, the cold, the snow, the getting caught in the car door and you pulled it out, the Ferris wheel, whatever. Every single time you've blown, dried, flat ironed, colored, bleached your hair, turned it red, green, blue, purple, back to blonde, back to black, and then decided to finally settle on this color. And now you want extensions and you want the best hair in the world to match your hair. Well, first of all, the best extensions, even at a 7 or an 8, let's call it a 7, is probably going to be better than your 2 or 3 graded
going to be better.
Yeah. So I didn't want people to think, as you're talking about the grade coming down, the extensions are worse than most people's hair. Most people's hair, by the time they want extensions, don't have perfectly 10 hair to start with. That's like oh my God, that's like heaven hair, you know?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't exist. There's not one person in the world that has a perfect 10 hair.
It's just standard that we'll never reach. Right.
It will never reach it. The reason why we'll never reach it is because
you're not in a vacuum.
Well, but yeah, that's exactly the point. Think about this. Your hair, the quality of your hair is dependent upon your body's pH levels, chemistry, and the scalp health, the health of your scalp. Okay.
Your life, your intake, everything.
Everything, right? And really, what is hair? It is the excess of all the nutrition and blood circulation that your body has. That whatever's left goes to the follicles and goes to your cuticles. That's where your nails and your hair comes from. It's whatever extra your body has that it can release out. With that said, unless you are the perfect specimen of health and body, right? You just don't have, you can have good hair, but you don't have perfect hair.
Nobody. Right.
Right. And when people tell me, well, my hair is virgin hair, I never color it. That just means, yeah, you're not chemically treating it. You're not processing it, but you are shampooing it. You are conditioning it. You're putting leave-in. You're putting blow dry. You're doing something. And if you tell me you never put heat, you let it air dry, that's a whole nother can of worms to get me going on, because then your hair is even worse, you know? So by
the swimming pool. The beach, the salt water.
So that person is donating their hair. The manufacturer has to process the living crap out of it. It's got to get to us, the stylists. We got to put it into your hair, the client. Now you go home with it and you're going to do whatever it is you do at home. It's just constantly going to be degrading. So all we're doing is playing quality control all day, every day. And my hypothetical is starting off from the perfect, most premium quality hair. Now, if you're starting from a mid-grade or a low-end hair to begin with, because of cost, because of the amount of time you're going to wear it for, the reusability, whatever the situation is, you're just starting at that much lower of a degraded quality to begin with. This is why people are running into the tangling, the matting, the color fading, the hair not lasting as long as advertised, whatever it is. And I get it, because this is a cost. This is a fun service to have. The issue that comes, which, brings me into the next topic with inventory management, unless you got anything else on quality control, with inventory management, the problem, what happens is everybody's scared of getting in trouble. When something goes wrong, or when it comes to maintenance and management, there's a lot of things going on. And if you're skipping steps and if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, hair extensions is different from natural hair or from hair color. It is very, very, very much cause and effect. If you do this, this will happen. If you do not do this, this will happen. And when we diagnose issues with hair extensions, unfortunately for everybody involved, because it is so much cause and effect, if you tell me you're having a problem and you describe your problem, it's one of two things, maybe one of three things. And when you tell me no, you didn't.
Liar.
Right? You're trying not to get in trouble. And you got to understand, I say this on every phone call, every time. I don't care who did what. This is not a discovery call to point fingers that, oh, see, bad, shame on you.
Going to jail.
Going to hair gel. No, we're trying to discover who did what so we can correct the behavior to prevent it from occurring again in the future. Believe me when I tell you, I want you to enjoy the service so you can continue to wear the extensions, so you can come back and get more extensions, so I can teach you more techniques on how to do more extensions. That's really what it's about. It's not about, oh, you dumbass, look what you did. you know, I really could care less whose fault something is.
Yeah. So for the most part, time just has things that happen over time, right? So there's wear and tear no matter what. So you had mentioned earlier something about 1 or 2 years later. And I think some people might be thinking, oh my God, hair extensions is that old? Well, it's okay, because as soon as hair comes out of your head, you don't feel this, right? It's not alive. And so as long as it's kept in a clean, dry, it's kind of like the Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, they found documents that were supposedly written from around Jesus's time, a couple thousand years ago. But just so happens that some of these caves in Egypt have the right low humidity levels, the right type of environment that will store paper longer without deteriorating. So similar to the hair, as long as we store it correctly in these air-conditioned environments, then there won't be any mold or anything growing or any deterioration. But there are some companies that store hair in an outside warehouse where it's too cold or too hot and humid, like here. And yes, you'll have some degradation, you'll have it deteriorating, you'll have it dry rot, you'll have mold on it. But if you store and process hair correctly, it will last many, many years. And so similar to hair on your head, if you take care of it, it can last longer than hair if you don't take care of it. That's just a real blanket statement. There's a lot of details.
Overview, you know?
Yeah.
Now, this one, it's going to be a little bit tricky. When we talk about hair extensions, we're always talking about the quality of the hair itself. But something that gets overlooked a lot is the attachment area of the hair extensions. Are we talking about keratin bonds? Are we talking about K-tips? Are we talking about beaded? Are we talking about O-tips, I-tips, you know, tape-ins, adhesives, clip-ins, short-term, long-term wear, you know, serviceable hair? The attachment area equally matters, and the quality of the attachment area equally matters. It's directly proportional to the quality of the hair that it's attached to as well, which then would lead into, because it's the reason why that's going to matter is because how is it going to be for the condition of your scalp, in addition to the condition of the hair that it's attaching to, your own natural hair that it's attaching to. And then it's also going to determine and dictate what type of tool you have to use to apply those attachment area to your hair. This is where it starts getting tricky.
Well, for me, are we getting off topic? Because I would love to talk about placement, attachments, and right and wrong. Help me stay on track as far as how that has to do with our topic for today, so that I don't go down a rabbit hole.
It's not so much about the placement. It's not so much about the technique. It's more about, we could totally do all that stuff next week for sure. How this relates to some of the common mistakes stylists make when choosing hair extensions is they automatically think, if I'm getting tape in, all adhesive, the quality of all adhesive is the same. K-tip and keratin bonds are the same. They're just two words that are synonymous of each other, but they're really not. K-tips and keratin bonds are completely two different things. When you're talking about
they're 10 different things.
Well, they're 10 different things. Sure.
In the K-tip world, I mean, it's a shame, but keratin meant something in the early days. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Somebody says they have a K-tip or keratin tip, it just means they have some sort of hard piece of plastic looking stuff that they heat up, and then it sticks like super glue or hot glue. Or, I mean, I remember there was a hair replacement company, Onright, who I don't even know if they have it anymore, but they had a tipped stranded type of extension, but they were very honest about what they had. It was polyester. They had polyester tipped extensions. Now, most people would just call it a keratin tip or a K-tip or a heated tip. And so I heard some people had beeswax. I love my bees, but I know that wax is not that strong of it's not going to hold two things together for a long period of time. It's very susceptible to heat. Over 95 degrees, it's just turning to liquid. it's just going to run a little over
So
100.
this is what we're talking about, those kind of things. And then even in the rings, in the beaded rings, the metal versus the silicone versus the aluminum or aluminium, however you say it. This is what's going to keep us on topic, because then what kind of tools you have to use? The hot tools, the heat tools. Are you warming bonds? Are you melting bonds? And I haven't even touched cold fusion technology, but like all of these things matters. And it really does also feed into and dictate the cost. Why you could get some quality hair, but it costs, this type of hair costs $100 more than that type of hair. Well, it's because those guys are using plastic. Those guys are using keratin. Those guys are using polyester.
Beeswax.
The beeswax. Yeah, it all feeds
Spirit gum.
That's what I'm talking about.
Spirit gum. That's my favorite. That was the original sticky product in hair. And I always wonder, where does that name come from? I love the name. I like to say it, spirit gum. That's like gum for religious people, I think. Yeah, I think so. I think this is gum.
Well, because you need some Jesus in your life to get that out the hair when it's time to remove it.
Gum
Let me
with
tell you.
spirit. I don't know why it's called spirit gum, but I'm going to have to keep saying spirit gum. I've never used spirit gum, but
Dude.
We had some in the salon, and one of the stylists used to use spirit gum.
Stop.
And they would split the hair, put a little spirit gum, put the extension in there, put a little spirit gum, cross over the client's hair, little spirit gum, cross over. It was like this crisscross with every criss and every cross was spirit gum, spirit gum, spirit gum, spirit gum. Am I are you drinking every
playing
time?
a drinking game? What? You're the only one that can do cuckoo thing.
And then people would use spirit gum along the forehead to hold
I'm going to choke on this tea.
to hold the lace down before they'd cover it with makeup. And I mean, spirit gum was the thing to use in the early days until we came out with better and different adhesives. But the thing about spirit gum is that it stayed sticky always. It never dried. So I didn't get it. What do we have here? Yeah. He said you need Jesus to get it out. Well, that's what you said.
You need some Jesus in your life to get it out.
Yeah, because it was. I don't know how they cleaned that out. Do you know that's still around today? Somebody brought up spirit gum. They still use it in the movies for some reason, because some of those stylists just never did learn it better techniques. But
a lot of it's temporary use as well.
So good point. You started off. Did you start off with spirit gum?
Yes, and now we're past it. Thanks God.
And then I was watching a documentary about King Tut's mask, and a cleaning person broke the beard off a while back, and so they took the opportunity to check if the face was reused or recoated, or if it was somebody else's mask, and they used it on him last minute. But then the thing that I got out of it was they said that I don't know, some study of history, they reattached it with beeswax the way they would have done it back then. And I was like, no, it's going to fall right back off. Beeswax is not going to stick two gold products together and they're going to stay. Maybe they melted gold over the top of it. But again, the adhesives have come a long way. So that's the important thing I think you're talking about, is like if somebody is buying hair and they're teaching how to put it in, and you don't know as a new stylist, and they bring out a bottle of spirit gum, don't do it. That we're past spirit gum. Could you say spirit gum once?
The terminology matters a lot, because there's also a lot of people, we're talking about keratin bonds right now heavily, but keratin bonds right now are definitely trending back around again.
Yes, they are.
We've been on the hand-tied weft kick for a number of years now, which is fine. The bonds never went away. It's just that everybody's focus was on hand-tied wefts. But now you come back around. This trend this season is very much heavier on the bonding.
Definitely.
A lot of people, now I'm starting to get a lot of calls. What temperature do you guys use to melt your bonds down? It's like, well, first of all, we don't melt anything. we use low temperature heat. We warm up the bond. We don't melt it. They're like, what's the difference?
Can I talk about that for just a second? I thought about this a minute ago when you said that. What is the difference? You know how I like to go to the extremes and everything just to understand the process better. And when you say heating, melting, to me, the extremes are it's hard and soft. I mean, hard and not soft, hard and nothing when it's cold. I meant to say hard and cold. And then if we were to heat and can keep on going, what's the end of the story if there's no limit to heat? Ash, right? And so you've got a level of no good for nothing, no good for nothing, no good for anything on each end. Where is it good for something? So that's why it's so important to talk about we're softening and warming, because that is the difference. When you take a round bead, there's a lot of levels to beads, and you pull hair through it and you squeeze it. It's a little harder to get it wrong, but there are some things you can do wrong still. But when you're dealing with
more forgiving,
that's a good word. But when you're dealing with heat, there is a little more skill involved, right? So how much do you heat or soften or melt? How much do you manipulate? Do you manipulate it round? Do you manipulate it flat? There are some skill levels to get better at along the way. And that was kind of the thing. That's why we required such extensive education in the past, because people they want to heat it. And why do they want to heat it so much? For speed, mostly, right? They think more heat is better and faster.
That's what it is. More heat is better, faster. You can manipulate the bond easier. You can just get it in and move on to the next one. And they don't realize they got this string cheese or these spider webs of keratin flying all over the place.
Or disintegration.
Plastic, glue, whatever the material is. And it's just a hot mess everywhere. And what they don't, one of the things I love to do is
a hot mess.
Very literally, I'm speaking right now, because in class, one of the things I love to do is I like to get low quality bond, and I like to literally melt it down in front of everybody and show. I mean, it ruined so many of my tools that now I just have one dedicated tool that's the crap tool, and then I don't cross contaminate it to my nice tools. It was very expensive lesson learned, but as it goes, I melt down a bad bond, a low quality bond, and I show them the chaos that happens. And then I take a good quality bond and I hold it with the tool, and I'm talking and I'm continuing with the program, and I'm teaching them and telling them, and everybody's just staring at me because I still got it held down the entire time I'm talking. And I'll leave it on for like a minute. I'll set a timer for about a minute, and I'll say, look, I'll open it up and I'll be able to still manipulate the bond and everything. If you just soften it, you don't hit that boiling point, it retains its
some structure and some integrity
of it. Yeah. So that's the biggest difference when you got to look at the attachment areas in keratin bonds, and you got to pay attention to the language of the heat tolerance, the tools being used, and what is it, a resin? Is it an adhesive? Is it a wax? Is it a keratin bond? Is
it gum?
Is it gum? Right. So yeah, all of those things. So now let's talk about the beads. You got metal, copper, and aluminum. You know, you got the silicone line beads. You got the size of the beads, the large ones versus the micros. So many different variations of those too. All of those matter to a certain effect, because it's going to determine what tool and application technique you have to use for those.
And then for me, I love to hear and understand the history of something, why and where, because our bead today with on-stage extensions, whether you're using the O-tip, the individual strands, or the wefts, the bead at a quick glance looks like the original bead, but there's so many. But the guy who manufactures and owns the company we buy the hair from is in his 80s, and he's been doing hair since he was a young teenager as far as manufacturing. So you wouldn't think somebody at that age that keeps moving forward and sells as much hair as he does, you should know, and I know now that he knows what he's talking about. But when I saw the bead, I ignorantly said, "What's wrong with the bead? It doesn't have silicone in it." And he said, "Oh, we're past that." And I'm like, "Past it?" I didn't realize we were on the edge of something brand new. But he gave me a pretty good education of beads. And then the little bit I knew about beads, and I'll try to make it really quick because you can talk about beads for a long time too. But like you said, there's different sizes. But for the most part, the original bead, I don't think a lot of people realize where a bead comes from. It comes from a tube, a long cylinder that's cut into sections. And so imagine when you take that long cylinder and you cut it into sections. Well, it's like if I took this pen off, that edge right around here is real sharp, or should be sharp to start with. That's the first thing companies don't do is soften those rounded those edges. We do. And so how we round them, he won't say. They're rounded. You can look really close, and they're so soft and smooth. The original beads were not smooth around the edges. They were sharp. They were flat and smooth on the inside. We'd crimp them on hair, and they would just slide right out and scrape and cut hair along the way. They would clean the hair on their way out. And so they didn't work well. They didn't last very long at all. And so right after that, somebody thought, you know what? We need grooves on the inside. It looked like the inside, a nut and a bolt that fits together. It looked like the inside of a nut.
Threading.
Threads.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was threaded all the way through, and it was a great grip. Holds on really good, but more sharp edges. So all we were doing was maybe staying in, maybe just cutting the hair right off. It was causing a lot of shedding. It was that didn't stay around long at all. But you can still find beads with threaded insides. I've seen them at some of these beauty shops, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe it's still around. So immediately they went to silicone. And they line the inside of the bead with something soft and I mean, rubbery is not the right word to use, but flexible. So the inside of the bead, the silicone never really wanted to stick to the inside of the bead very well. But now you got to think, all right, we got a bead here. We're going to fill it up with silicone, right? Now we got to make the bead bigger so we can fit silicone in there. So the beads grew in size. And so for the longest time, we were using this is probably the standard bead, a very large bead, because we're not only pulling hair through the bead, we are only pulling hair through the bead with our technique. And it's so hard for people to understand. But what they're doing is they're pulling hair from the client through the bead and sticking the eye of an eye tip inside there. So you're filling up that section with an eye, hair, silicone, so much going on in there. So then when it squeezes, it's kind of flexible in there. Almost sounds like it'd be a good thing. They didn't take the sharp edges off the beads. The inside edge is kind of coated with silicone, so it's a little protected, but the outside edge is still kind of sharp. So it's still not so great on hair. The silicone we use silicone to condition hair. So silicone is not, it's like in its dry state, it's a little grippy, but when it's wet, it's a little more slippy. So silicone never held as good. It was the best for the longest time. But when you went back to a bead, which is what we did, that had no silicone inside, no threads, rounded edges, now your choices, which over time, things get better, right? So now the choices were what style or type of metal to use. And that's why the aluminum was so important, because you can have harder metals and tins and things that would hold so well. They were hard to uncrimp and get out. And then you had things that were so soft that they would fall apart. So our bead, even though it's called aluminum, it's not 100% aluminum. It's an alloy that's mostly aluminum, but it's soft enough and hard enough that it grips really good. It stays really well, but it's able to be taken out without damage. But it's on the brink of being soft enough that you shouldn't use it a second time. Just replace the bead. They're so cheap when you take it out. But many people are uncrimping the bead, slide it up, recrimping it, and staying really good for another few weeks. That's fine. If you're getting good success out of it, do it. But just know that our technique, the onstage technique, is just ahead. And there's people that have copied us. So there's other ones similar to this. But what's happening is we're pulling hair through the bead, squeezing the bead. No eye, nothing else in the bead. So now, since we're not putting an eye in there, that bead can be smaller. We also don't have silicone in there, so the bead can be smaller. So that bead is significantly smaller with the same or more hair to support than we did with all that other crap inside the bead. And that logically makes sense when you explain it like that. But a lot of people don't understand when they see that small bead, they're like, how is that going to hold anything? Well, it actually holds more hair than some of the beads you're using, because I'm not putting everything from the dumpster inside that bead along with the hair, just the client's hair. Because the other thing is, when you put a lot of stuff inside there, it's all unorganized. It's not like, especially the eye. Boom. This is my favorite part. Squeeze down on the eye. What's going on over here and over here? You can't get that bead to go around that. Sure, the silicone is supposed to be flexible enough that it squishes in and closes up that area, but not well. So it's not even gripping the hair that's pulled through on the sides of the eye. So this is why eye tips drove me the most crazy. I immediately saw this early on with eye tips.
That's next week.
Oh,
Next week.
Yeah. So
that's the construction. You're mainly discussing, why
use a higher end product.
Different beads matter, just like we were talking about the tips, right? So at the end of it all,
on that. You're right. That is next week. I crossed the line.
You crossed the line. I got to keep some gum to keep you in place.
Spirit gum.
Yeah. So I think what we should do is, just like how they have at the carnival, you can count how many, jelly beans are in the jar, then you win a prize. If somebody can tell us in the comment section how many times you said the damn word, then you'll send them a pack of it.
I don't have any. I'll find some spirit gum and send it to you if you can tell me how many times I said spirit gum in this YouTube.
There you go. So leave us a comment.
And how many times you said it.
I ain't said it. Nah, maybe I said it once.
I think twice.
Regardless, I ain't sending you a pack.
It's got to be both words, not just the word gum. Like you said gum a few times.
Because I refuse to say the whole thing, right?
The whole word.
That's what we got for you. What are some of the issues that you all found when you were trying to source, or what are some of the challenges that you guys ran into when you were trying to source? Share it with us. Let us know. It's always fun to see what are all the different things going on out there. Thank you all for watching. Go out there, stay profitable, and we'll catch you next week.